What's up, guys? Today going to be pulling the Samurai into the garage because I think something's up. The other day I took the car out for a ride and I don't know, I just feel like it lost a lot of power. It doesn't feel the same. I don't know, it just feels slow, which is weird. It's still starting pretty much the same and it still runs, not necessarily having any issues on that side, but absolutely does feel slow. So we're gonna go through the car. Now, I haven't driven the car a lot, so I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if it's because I'm getting used to it or I've just been driving some of the other cars and it's just not scaring me the same. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna put it into the garage. We're gonna go through a few things. I'm gonna check spark plugs, just see what those are looking like. I haven't changed those this year. I'm also gonna do a compression test on the car and a few other things. I'm gonna get out of the small garage. We'll get it up the hill into the big garage, and then we'll start taking a look, see what the heck's going on. Stay tuned. All right, so Samurai's back there. Gotta get the 930 out, so I'll pull the 930 out, and then we'll pull the Samurai out and get it over to the bigger garage. All right, so the Samurai has never really started great, but that's been like that for a long time. So here's what it's like. It's in my garage, and it is a little cool in here. I don't know exactly what the temperature is, but this is an average startup for this thing. It usually doesn't start on the first try. And then you gotta wake it up a little bit. And then it does start. But let's pull it out, put it into the other garage so we could dig into it a little deeper. Alright, so before we start the video, before we really dig in, let's talk a little bit about the Samurai. You guys have seen it on the channel, but I don't know that I've ever dug super deep into what this thing even is. Let's dig a little bit deeper onto what makes up the world famous Suzuki Samurai. The Samurai is a 1988 and a half. You know it's an 88 and a half because it has the square dash. It was one of the first projects that I ever welded on. It was my first real build, not just putting coilovers or wheels on a car. This was a full extensive welding, fabricating, full extensive build. My expectations of this car were if I could have fun with it for a couple of months, maybe a year. If I got 2 years out of it, I was gonna be happy. But ever since putting this thing together, it's been perfect. I've done almost nothing to this in the last decade of just enjoying it, which is extremely rare, A, for a project that somebody puts together, and B, for something that you rotary swap and then put a massive turbo on it. Let's cover a little bit about the build. I'm not sponsored by anyone in this video. I'm solely just showing you what parts I used and what parts have worked this whole time. Let's start off with the Precision Turbo. This is a 7675 Precision. It is a journal bearing turbo, and it's been absolutely perfect. It's held the power, it's held the abuse this whole time with no issues. It's a 6-port NA motor with NA rotors, NA plates housings, with a Turbo 2 lower and upper intake manifold. I prefer to use as much of the stock components as possible. I feel like that's really been one of the main things that have kept this car together all this time. I used the original Mazda TPS sensor from an S5 Turbo 2. This is a Greddy elbow, which it just basically converts the triangle intake port to a round 3-inch so that you could run 3-inch piping. Tile blow-off valve, Precision 66mm wastegate, which is tucked into the fender. That was all done after having some overheating issues. Custom manifold built by me, welded by a friend before I started aggressively getting into welding. The exhaust was all made by me, same thing. You have a championship 3-row radiator. This thing's been great so far. It does help keep the Samurai cool. Obviously, when it's really, really hot and I'm stuck in traffic, there's still overheating issues. It is a bridge-ported rotary engine, which is pretty much what they're known for. I think everybody really has that issue. But overall, I've driven this thing hours away multiple times this year with no issues as far as overheating. The only time I had an issue was in Times Square. Times Square for Seven's Day, it got hot. But I was almost in Times Square, and we were on one of those side streets going into Times Square for, oh man, what felt like at least an hour. And it's only maybe a quarter mile long. The temps got really hot, but I had no choice because I was in an uphill traffic. So I seen 230 that day in temps, which is not good. And I got a feeling that did some damage to the motor. I'm hoping not. Hopefully it's just something basic, but you never know. So that's why we're here today. AEM smart coils. This whole setup is ran on Fuel Tech. It's an older Fuel Tech. So Fuel Tech, if you're watching this video, talk to me. Let's upgrade this thing. I think this is probably one of the most important parts of this car is going to be the Fuel Tech engine management. This thing has saved the Samurai so many times with its safety features, where if you overboost, it shuts the car off. If oil pressure gets low, it has all these safety parameters. I highly recommend this. Again, not a sponsored video. This is an older FT400 setup, but this setup is absolutely key component in the longevity of the Samurai. Original tank in the car. It does have a Ford rear end in it, which is narrowed, obviously. And that's pretty much what makes up the Samurai. The body's all factory. Did remove the rear bar that comes with like a soft top. Took that off. This is just a cover. And everything else on the outside, all the bumpers, lights, these overhang fender flares are all original. Obviously Weld Racing wheels, and obviously the custom front grille, which I think really makes this car. It's the one thing on the outside that I did that's a modification. Everything else is practically original, obviously besides the wheels. So let's jump into it. We're gonna put the spark plugs off. Like I said, I have them labeled. I haven't checked these spark plugs in a long time. So we're gonna pull these off, see what they look like, and start diagnosing the problem. Hopefully we don't come to a conclusion that the engine needs a rebuild, but if it did, I wouldn't be mad. This thing owes me absolutely nothing. So this engine was put together by Goopy Performance out of New York. This thing's held up pretty good. First round had a small issue with the engine, but the second round, everything is good. I think that was just a dyno issue. Goopy Performance does modify the housings to basically so you can remove the spark plugs a little bit easier, which makes life easier. So we're gonna pull those off now. Alright, so here we have the spark plug. I haven't done this prior to this video, so you guys are all seeing it with me. Doesn't look great. I don't know necessarily that they're fouled out, but it definitely wouldn't hurt to replace these. Samurai is using Turbo 2 style spark plug, so this is recommended for a Turbo 2 car. As you can see, this looks completely different than your average spark plug. Kind of odd. But it works really, really well. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look great. Definitely going to be swapping this out. Let's pull the rest of them and see what they look like. Okay, so here is the trailing plug for the front rotor. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely seen better days. Let's pull off the rears to see if they have the same consistency, which I think they should, hopefully. Okay, so this is the rear leading plug for the back, but consistency is the same. It doesn't look extremely dry, it's not soaking wet, but I mean the spark plug just kind of looks like crap. So regardless, we are going to compression test this car, so I'm going to check the last one, and then we're going to pull it out of the garage to warm it up, get it to operating temperature, pull it back in, burn our hands a little bit, and do a compression test. So here is the trailing plug for the rear. Yeah, same consistency. Let's put this back in so we can do our compression test. Alright, I literally feel like I'm racing the weather today. It got a little bit wet. It just started drizzling. But we're at 180 temps. Now we're going to try it again and see if we can do the compression test. Alright, so now engine's to operating temperature. I actually pulled the relay out for the fuel pump, and now we're going to try this again. So that's not good. So the front rotor has a 60 compression, which is not ideal. You can see that's the front. the front rotor. Now, here's the truth. This thing has had low compression like this for a long time, but it holds. It's not ideal. It's not what you would want. It's probably why it's not making the power it should. So, we're going to check the rear rotor. Let's see what the rear rotor gives us. $60. So that's the rear rotor. Alright, so unfortunately, this definitely leads us to believe that the engine is absolutely a little bit hurt. But that's okay. It's expected. This thing's been around for a while. Exactly what's going on, I don't know. But I think I have an idea that might fix it.